Okay. Hi, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what I've learned through my professional development experience. First, I learned experienced teachers need help too. I was a little worried about leading a session where I was the new teacher, and especially since I only had a couple of years experience. I was also a bit intimidated about not being confident in knowing exactly what I was going to do. But I quickly learned that everyone was kind of excited to be there, and they wanted to try it, and they were anxious to see what I had to say. So it was pretty exciting. So how did I choose what I wanted to do? It was a multi-step process, actually. First, the teacher that I chose to be a mentor to, Lynn, and I talked about what we needed to do. And we chose informational text because first, ELA skills were extremely weak. Then I worked with our school instructional coach and our grade level team to help finalize my decision. I also worked with parents and other teachers as I administered a survey, and I learned that we need to talk about informational text, nonfiction text, maps, and other information. And finally, my social studies science map scores, or measure of academic progress, were low, and we needed to address those concerns. Okay. What I want to do is share with you some examples from our seminar. So the next few slides have been copied and pasted into this just to share with you some of the information I shared to give you a general idea of what the course included. What I asked the participants to do is brainstorm. When you think about special text features, what can you imagine? What do you think it is? What I'd like for you to do now is just take a few minutes and think, what is she talking about? What are you talking about? What are included in special text features? And so take a few minutes now to think about it, please. And I hope you've come up with a list of at least 2 or 3. Okay, by now you should have collected several, and I didn't realize they were up on the board because mine didn't realize you were seeing them. You should have maps, captions, italicized words, headings, titles, charts, graphs, highlighted words. All of that should be types of special text features that you should be looking for in your text. Okay, the next is an example out of a science book. When you look at a textbook and you start flipping through, especially when you assign the kids to read some special text, usually when you assign a reading material, they want to read it as quick as they can. They just start reading, finish reading, and they go straight to the questions. However, especially for visual learners, the problem is if you don't use the pictures, you lose some of the information. In this particular lesson, we're talking about reflection. We're talking about light. Without the picture of the reflection, it's really hard for visual learners to know what a reflection is. So the picture on the left shows a great picture of a reflection. What's better is it's not a mirror. It's showing it on a lake. Highlighted vocabulary words are also in this section, as are section headings. And at the bottom, it's a diagram to reinforce the concept of the angle of reflection, which shows that it comes in at the same angle that's reflected out. So it's things like that that really help, and you really need to use all of those features when you're reading. Reading straight text is not enough anymore. Here's another example that we copied from a trade book called Choosing Freedom. In this book, again, if you just wanted to read, it wouldn't take very long because the simple text on here includes only this section with one highlighted word, Minutemen. However, over here is a little bit about the shop heard around the world. This is a copy of a letter, which would be a primary source document. Perfect example to talking about primary versus secondary sources. At the bottom is a timeline. What better way to summarize information than using a timeline? You completely miss a lot of concepts if you don't use those special text features, and often we don't use them. Okay, using vocabulary within the text. One of the strategies our classrooms in our school is using right now is using vocabulary. Our social studies books that we are using have listed all of the preview, main idea, people, places, and vocabulary at the beginning of each chapter. What we do is we read this section before we start the chapter. It gives us an idea of exactly what we'll be talking about. My students, again, we use this to create our vocabulary cards that we use later in the chapter as we run across the words. as you can see up here, is also the beginning of a timeline that's continued across on the other page. Just introducing the students to what's going to be happening in this chapter. It's a great idea to let them summarize, kind of preview, and often predict what's going to happen. Question is, what difference did I make? Did the text features really work? Did they matter? Yes. My ELA scores increased in my spring map test from my fall. In fact, 73% of my students increased their scores, most of them significantly. In science, my students increased 89% of their scores, and those were very significant. And finally, we did not complete a social studies test in the spring map assessment, but I'm pretty sure we would have increased there as well. So what's next? What do? We know it works. Our students now have skills that they will have for the rest of their lives. Between creating bookmarks and providing multiple practice opportunities, the students have developed proper reading habits of using these skills. They know how to use the special text features. Higher scores should be reported on state standardized tests as well as any other assessments we decide to offer. The improved process of reading, our students are sure to succeed. I encourage everyone to use special text features in all that they read.